morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here today. The sun is shining, there's no rain. Although, you know what? Our front lawn looks beautiful after the rain. So I'm not going to complain about that. So, of course, we always have to start by thanking those people that bring us the money. They make this happen. And without their support, we wouldn't be able to offer this service. So we'd like to thank the province of Alberta and the government of Canada, who together provide funding for employment services across the province. I would also like to thank Compound X, our technology advisor, or provider, and all the magic behind the scene is because of them. So, we have to be nice to them. And then also the fabulous talent pool team that make this event happen. So before we begin, there's a few notices I would like to mention. A reminder that you can check all of our past webinars on our YouTube channel. You'll be able to see this one also when it's posted. You'll also be able to tell that I do not have very many new clothes because I'm wearing the same clothes throughout every single one of these for the past several years. I think it's time for me to go shopping. And then there will be a post-event survey, so keep your eye out for the link because those who complete it can be entered to win $100 in Amazon gift certificates. I mean, what could you do with $100, right? Yeah, that's a good amount. We've created a resource list that you can access through our accounts, through our websites, and actually I think there'll be a link in the chat. And it will give you some valuable information to help with your job search. So I strongly advise that you check that out. A reminder that our next webinars are in the fall, so we're going to take a break over the summertime, and it's going to be a two-part session, October 19th and November 16th. We're going to be having an interactive session with career coaches and HR professionals that will support job search and interview preparation. Participants will be moved into small groups, and we will work on things like resume review, interview skills, and more. A reminder though, space will be limited because of the format that we're using. And so watch your email for more information so you can sign up. Then we're also having a job fair come September 21st. So if you want information on any of these events, go to talentpooljobfair.com and the information will be there. And of course, Talent Pool also shares information on social media, through Twitter, through LinkedIn. So hopefully as job seekers, you are involved in all of those different websites or mediums. So we are going to be taking some questions throughout this whole program. And so we want it to be interactive. We want to focus on what your needs are. So I want you to know that you can check out the question and answer feature and you can type in your questions there. They will be sent to me and hopefully we'll have enough time to answer everyone's. I do want to say that I have questions. I've got lots of questions. So we will not have any gaps in silence because there's so much information that we can share with you. And we have some really wonderful sources of knowledge and expertise with us today. So we do have some familiar faces. First of all, we've got Debbie. She's both a career coach and a talent acquisition professional. She has experience working with all levels of job seekers. And she is a registered professional recruiter and was one of the top 500 LinkedIn certified professional recruiters worldwide. I mean, that's pretty cool. So she's helped hundreds of people. She also is a certified laughter yoga leader, which, when you hear her laugh, you totally understand why she decided to get that certification. And she also has two dogs. And one is Jake, a golden retriever, Batman. I love that name, the bulldog. And she ranked #1 recruiter in Calgary and #4 in Canada. I don't know if that's up to date because I bet she's #1 both places. So lots of expertise and experience to share. Then we have Pat, and Pat describes herself as a project manager, a labor market geek, and she also why I shouldn't say also because I think it's the most important. She is a mom and she is a wife, and I think she lives with a household of boys. I think that's what I remember her telling me. So she is a star, and she understands the importance of negotiation and being able to mediate. She is a sports enthusiast. She believes Canada can have a thriving economy with environmentally responsible energy. And I really love that she is a geek. She's got over 20 years experience. She started when she was just very, very young. And she provides clients with analysis and insights into the dynamics of Canada's labor market, emerging trends and occupations. And she's been working in the field. I'm not going to say the year. I've got it written down here, but I'm not going to say the year. And she was instrumental in the development of cross-sectional occupational methodology used by Petro LMI and others for assessing transferability and suitability of talent across industries, which is so important, especially over the last few years. It's a huge area and that we really do need information. So thanks, Pat, for doing that. Then we have Lise, who is a colleague of mine. We both facilitated job search workshops for the Alberta government. She's a passionate, enthusiastic, and inquisitive certified career development practitioner who's helped hundreds of clients find meaningful work in the last 11 years. She's just a youngin'. And she is an entrepreneur who has a portfolio career over the years. She believes work should be meaningful, which has value, which is a value that guides in the work that she does with her clients. She's also the mother of 2 boys. She's a wife. She enjoys running, cycling, cross-country skiing, stress baking. I love that. And is an avid reader of Canadian fiction. She's also a she loves cinnamon buns, or maybe she makes the best cinnamon buns. I must say, I make them with my grandkids. Yeah, that's cool. We'll have to have a conversation later. And she is passionate about her crock pot and loves visiting farmers markets. And last but not least, Cristina has held many different positions at TELUS Talent. TELUS. It's a great way to learn about the organization, acquire knowledge that's helpful as a recruiter. So she recently became part of TELUS's talent acquisition team, hiring service technicians in Northern Alberta. And she values diversity and inclusion in her work. And Cristina enjoys traveling and loves spending time with family and her 2 dogs, Zorro and Danny. Oh my gosh, great dog names. And then I thought I'm going to introduce myself because I haven't done that previously. I have been in this crazy, ever-changing field of career development and job search for 20 years. I find the more things change, the more they stay the same. It seems to be a cycle. And like Lise, I love to bake. And like Cristina, I love to travel. I've got 61 countries under my belt so far. And similar to Debbie and Cristina, my old dog, and Pat has a dog too, is called Belle, but she's nothing like Disney Belle. She is not graceful. She does not know how to dance, but she's a Great Dane Mastiff Cross, and we love her, but she's getting old. So without, further ado, let's get this discussion started. So I have some questions, and I will be asking each presenter a question, and then everybody's going to jump in and give their opinion. So let's start with a very valuable skill called networking. Every job seeker needs to know about networking. So I'm going to ask Debbie this question first, and then everybody else jump in. What is the value of networking and what's involved in networking? Because I know that Debbie is a networking queen. Oh, Debbie, you're on mute. Everybody remember.
There we go. Thank you for the introduction. And Lynn, that's such an interesting question about networking. And what's so neat about it is that over the years, I've seen how much it's changed, and it's still changing. So if you take me back to my years when I was at the Suncor and Devon and Synovus. The networking was all face to face. It was done in the coffee shops. My boss at the time used to joke and say that he was we had run out of office space. That tells you how long ago this was, but we had run out of office space. So he was going to move my office to Starbucks because that's where he could always find me. And then you fast forward to COVID, which changed how networking looks and how we do it. So now what I'm finding is there are some people that are a lot more comfortable with the face-to-face networking, and other people not so much. And then so a lot of it now is done over these Zoom calls or whatever, Google Meets or whatever the different platforms that they have. And then what we saw was that all these articles, and we were getting told all the time that people were burning out from Zoom meetings. And so I was telling people maybe hold off on asking people for that. But now as we see these companies all saying, okay, now come back to the office, you got to come back to the office. Everyone's like, oh, I don't have Zoom fatigue. And they're quite happy to meet you over Zoom. So that's where I think we are right now. I'm personally still not going and meeting people for coffees face to face. I do a lot of Zoom meetings, and I'm actually really old school. I still do a lot by phone. So I think it looks a lot different. And then we're relying more and more and more on social media. Right. So for recruiting, I'm either using LinkedIn, or I use, actually the one that usually gets people laughing is I still use Facebook a lot. And we're actually using it more now than we ever have. So figuring out where, I always say we first look at the search and then go, where are these people hanging out? And then we go try and hang out there. And right now that looks a lot like on these different online platforms.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Facebook. Isn't that strange? Okay.
Well, especially Facebook. It was actually a friend of mine does marketing, and he was telling me the demographics for Facebook were females, more mature females. And so he said, if you are using it, so for instance, we've used it for trade searches, which typically there's more males in the trades. Haven't had as much luck. We've got a couple that way. But yeah, if we're doing an admin role, it's like a jackpot.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to jump in?
Sure. Just a couple of thoughts. I think even though maybe the platforms for networking have changed, I think some of the foundations of what you're trying to do in networking stays the same. So, certainly in the work I do around transitioning workforce, where we're really encouraging people to, understand where your skills might be applicable, what are other industries about, what are other positions about, it's coming up with some really good questions that you can ask, whether you're online, on LinkedIn, social media, in person, because, I see part of networking is, not just telling somebody about how great you are, talking about dogs. There she is. Sorry. But also trying to learn. And so what are some of those, foundational questions that you can get somebody else talking about, the industry or a role, so that you can learn, what does this mean for my career and how might it impact what I want to do from a training or career pathing or job search perspective.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yes.
I think I would add, in the work that I do with my clients, the word networking can really evoke a lot of panic and stress, because we have this vision of walking into a big cocktail hour or dinner meeting and having to strike up conversations with people. So I like to think of the word as connecting versus networking, and as strategic connecting,
Yes.
because you're gathering information about an industry or expanding the number of people you know in your world. A lot of people tend to forget about maintaining a network. So when you think about networking as a job seeker, it's not simply, oh, I've got to meet all these new people who will help me get a job. Who are the people who are currently in your network? And when was the last time that you connected or talked to them? So like to look at it from a building, but also maintaining perspective is really valuable in job search, but also in managing your career health.
Good point.
That's actually really good advice. And don't you find too, Lise, that it's the same where the career coaches are telling people to have their 30-second elevator pitch, and make sure when you're answering make sure when you're answering in interviews, you're using the STAR method or the PAR method. And that actually gives people a lot of anxiety. And I think it's the same with the whole networking thing. And instead of just letting people be their true, genuine selves, but giving them the tools to help them navigate through that, is actually way better than going, okay, so make sure you do this, this, and this. It just sends people into orbit when they're already anxious about that specific situation. So I always tell people, just be yourself, be your true, genuine self. And if it turns out that it wasn't you said the wrong thing, or you didn't say something you should have, it's not the end of the world. And in fact, a lot of times what I find is that you go, oh, I was supposed to answer in the STAR format or the PAR format, whatever it is now. And they're so focused on trying to answer that way instead of just being their true, genuine self, that they come across as disingenuous, because they're trying to think the way that they're supposed to do it. Yeah, I think that's really good advice, actually.
That's a good point. Although it does mean that as career coaches, we might be out of business.
No, because people still need to hear kind of how it's done and then make it their own.
Yes, totally. Okay. Cristina, I'm not sure if you have an answer to this one, but how do I gauge what type of person is successful at a particular company, and how the company might help employees achieve success? So as a recruiter, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the best things that you can do is to do a little bit of research on the company. When you go through their website, you're probably going to go straight into what the company is, what they do. But there's also other information that is really valuable, like their values, and how the company has community involvement, for example, and their culture and things like that. And usually right there, you're going to find what kind of people they're looking for. So if you look at their values, if they're looking for people that are very innovative, maybe you think that you have that kind of skill, that kind of experience. So that could be something could be a really good match. And they usually in their career website, well, at least at TELUS, you can find, what kind of different programs we have for people that apply and want to grow their career in there. How do we do it? What kind of opportunities we give to people internally, for example? What kind of courses you can take that the company may be even able to, pay for, and things like that. Everything, related to your individual growth in the company and as an individual.
Okay, thank you.
Are you finding, though, Cristina, with the way the market is right now, it's less about candidates learning about your organization and more about you selling your organization to candidates?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best things that has happened lately is that people have a lot more questions. So it's not just about them trying to get the job, but trying to get into the right, the right company. So they have a lot of questions about community involvement and how they can be involved in different like charity organizations and things like that the company partners with. A lot of information that they are asking about the benefits, even not just specifically or benefits in general, but what are you doing to promote mental health for your employees? What is the environment in the team, in a teamwork environment, things like that. So yeah, there is a lot more questions. When I interview somebody, I feel like they're interviewing me at the same time, which is great. I love it.
Yes, yes. That's great. Thank you. Lise, could you tell us what are some of the valuable workplace skills that are in demand right now? And then adding to that, how do I acquire them or refine them? Do you have any suggestions?
Sure. So the word skills, what are the top skills? It will depend on the industry. So there's different types of skills. You've got technical skills, you've got transferable skills, you've got a term called soft skills, which I hate because it implies that they're not important. So I'm really trying to change that language to professional skills. So if we were to look at what professional skills across all industries are important, you can see some trends regardless of industry. But if I am a teacher and working in education, or I am working in retail, the skills might be a little bit different depending on the work that you're doing. So what we're seeing and hearing from employers and from different think tanks are professional skills are really important because they're very difficult to teach. They're difficult to train. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And what I'd like to show you, just one second here. I have two screens. So if I'm looking off into the distance, I'm not, fading out on you. I am showing you what's on a different screen here. So here we go. So, whoops. So this website is from the World Economic Forum. So the website is weforum.org. And what you can see here is they're forecasting the top professional skills, and some of them are technical, that employers are really looking for in their candidates up to 2025. And please, Pat, Cristina, Lynn, and Debbie, jump in because you're on a different side of this than I am when it comes to hiring. So you can see analytical thinking and innovation, active learning, and learning strategies. I am thrilled that is an important skill because it tells us that you can't stay stagnant in your career. The world of work is constantly changing. Your role is constantly changing. Technology changes. And so you have to be able to learn. How do you learn? And it doesn't mean you have to go to post-secondary and take a degree. Learning comes in so many different forms. So you, as an individual, having that skill means seeking opportunities and seeing what you need to learn and where you need to learn it. Problem solving, critical thinking and analysis, creativity, originality and initiative, leadership and social influence, technology use, monitoring and control. So you notice it's not telling you, you must know how to use Snapchat. It's broader than that. It's using technology, understanding how it works for you, what you can bring to your work, the changes that are happening in industry. The next one is a bit more of a technical skill, the technology design and programming. Resilience, stress tolerance, and flexibility. And I think we've really seen that through all of the changes that have taken place through the pandemic, and being able to manage your health, seek help when you need it, and to have that adaptability and resilience and manage stress and reasoning, problem solving, and ideation. The one that I don't see here that I think I would add, and I don't have a source for this is opinion, is the skill of cultural intelligence, being self-aware of your own biases, your stereotypes, how you communicate, and communications there. So being aware of that and the impact of that in the workplace. So I'll throw it out to the rest of the panelists. What other skills are you seeing and hearing? Do you agree with these from the World Economic Forum? Would you add? Is there something missing from here?
Don't everybody talk at once. We all have to, hear.
I can talk about the kinds of roles that I recruit for, and Lise, you're going to disagree with me, but they're not actually, nobody ever comes to me looking for soft skills. It's actually all like technical skills, whether it's in HR, accounting, they want certain software for their company. I've never had someone say like, find me, 3 of the 5 things or 3 things off this list, or never. So when, and I have like, I work with a team of people now, and so when we have these discussions, a lot of my recruiters, they disagree, and they're more on we need to know, the style of the manager, and I just disagree. I feel like my job, they'll tell me what to find them, and it's the a laundry list of technical skills and experience. And if they don't have that, they're not willing to look at them. And even in this tough market, they would rather leave. I'm thinking of one role now that I have been working on for over a year. I'm not proud of that, by the way. And I have made hundreds of phone calls. Actually, I've gone through the list, I think 4 times now. So I will say I've made over 1,000 phone calls on this one role, and I still haven't filled it. We found people that had very close to what they were looking for, and they interviewed them a couple of times, and then at the end they were just like, the amount of time it's going to take to train, to get them up to speed, it's not good. And I'm not saying every job, I'm saying the jobs that I do, and I'm known for mostly senior technical roles. But yeah, I don't see that people, and I'm not arguing with the World Economic Forum by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying, from the roles that I work on, nobody asks me for these soft skills. They do maybe in the interview stage figure out, but what I say to people is it's not even these skills in the interview. From what I know, what they do is they come in, and the hiring manager is essentially looking at the person and talking to them to go, are they going to play nice in the sandbox? Are they going to be dependable and get their stuff in on time and make my life a little bit easier? They're looking for someone to support them on the team, or if they're looking for someone to lead the team, then is that person for their managers? Are they going to get along? That's it. And they can tell you see everything in 30 seconds of meeting someone, whether or not they think they can get along with them. And that has nothing to do with all these other skills, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of debate or disagreement. And I absolutely respect that, especially from the position that you're coming from. Your clients are saying, we need these things, and their focus is really on technical skills. And I did a piece of work for a post-secondary co-op department where employers were saying, your students are so strong technically, but their skills in their professional skills are weak, and we need help to develop those. And so when we think about skills, technical skills that are the focus of your clients, and some of the other perhaps transferable professional skills, it's almost like it's a package that different industries might put different emphasis on. Would that be a kind of a middle ground that we could look at when it comes to skills acquisition and what is important? Because yes, I might have the technical skills, and am I going to make my boss's job easier? Well, then hopefully I've got some of the other deployment skills of those technical skills, team building, communication, to make that success in the workplace.
I think, I guess my only thing is that I see a lot of job coaches suggesting to people that, they have transferable skills, which they do,
Mhm.
but to an extent. At the end of the day, if a client is looking for an engineer and you are not an engineer, you did not go to school to become an engineer, or you don't have your PEng designation, which is required here, and that's a requirement of this particular job, you can have every single soft skill on that
Right.
list, and you are not going to get an interview.
Right.
100%. I would never, as
Oh,
we go through
yeah.
the qualifications of a job,
Yeah.
we say, okay, this is a non-negotiable. Why are you applying for this job? Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. And you're bang on, Debbie. It's really evaluating, do I have what they're looking for? And if I don't, then the transferable is not going to cut it.
Agreed.
And if I could just add to that, because I think, what you're talking about is very aligned with, the work that I do around, transitioning a workforce, and we say those technical skills are your foot in the door skills. Those are must haves in order to get the job.
Right.
But we look at transitioning between industries from both an attraction and a retention perspective. And I think sometimes it's on the retention side of things, after you get your foot in the door, where some of those professional workplace skills come in terms of, how well are you going to fit in? How well are you maybe going to progress within this company? Or, those are where some of those kinds of skills maybe play a better role. And even from, not just from a company's perspective around, progressing through the company, but even how well an employee who is, gotten their foot in the door is going to thrive and feel comfortable and feel like the company's a fit. And sometimes it's those, kind of less tangible things that you can't measure as easily in the recruitment process that makes or breaks things on, retention and overall sort of job satisfaction perspective.
I have a little saying, soft or professional skills, I really like that, can get you hired, but they also can get you fired. And so those are the skills in the end that quite often get people into trouble if they don't have them. Whether they are, as you mentioned, Debbie, whether they are dependable, whether they will be following through with their responsibilities, whether they're punctual, whether they actually do the work. So this is really very interesting. And Curtis wants to know, what's the role you haven't filled yet, Debbie? Because maybe there's somebody in the audience here, and maybe they can help you out.
That is great networking, Curtis.
I'm hanging my head in shame on this one. It's a concrete estimator.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
Wow.
sorry,
Yeah.
I covered that. I
So
saw
an industrial concrete estimator. Yeah, they're doing being able to estimate like the concrete pads those wind farms go on, and I guess yeah, it's over a year. And you want me to air some more of my dirty laundry? So I have another role. I mean, I've got lots of roles on the books right now, but I got another one that's I've done. I have to look. I think it's over 2,000 or 3,000 phone calls on to find physicians for Lethbridge.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, and it's so funny because the government goes and says we have no problems hiring doctors in Alberta, and I'm sitting there going, well, why don't you come talk to me? Because I've been working, like I said, like 2,000 or 3,000 phone calls, and we haven't gotten a single one. And the clinic is opening next month, and we don't have anybody as a doctor.
Wow.
So you want to talk about pressure right now?
yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so a few questions have come in, besides Curtis, of course, that I'm going to ask. Cristina, this person is a job developer where they help clients get jobs. and just wondering how can she effectively connect with someone like you in order to be able to help her clients be successful?
Yeah, you know what? One of the things that I've noticed whenever I go to the talent pool job fairs is that once in a while, so we get a lot of candidates coming in and asking questions about jobs, but once in a while, we get these job developers or other people from other organizations asking if they can have contact, if they can follow up and have meetings and get to know us a little bit better. And I think that is a great way to start the conversation. So if they are somebody that have connections with people that are looking for jobs and we are looking for employees, it is a really good way to start networking there. So definitely come to the job fairs. Even if you're not looking for a job, but you want to develop some networking, we're always open to follow up and have any other meetings afterwards. If somebody comes to me through LinkedIn and they ask me a question and they start a conversation, that is another great way to do it as well.
Thank you. Okay, Hazel, you got your answer there.
Lynn, I want to say one thing about that. Is a friend of mine is a recruiter, and they are doing a huge project in the Medicine Hat area. And he was just, I don't know if I have my notes. Oh yeah. So he was just down there, I don't know, last week or the week before for a job fair. He hired 23 people one day on the spot. The next day, another 19.
Wow.
They're doing a huge solar project down there, and they like hiring local people. And he's headed back. He told me he's headed back there, I think next week or maybe the week after, again doing a job fair. So where we saw for the last few years of nobody even doing the job fairs, never mind. Not only are they doing them, but you've got organizations like that with these big projects happening in an area. And so when people are asking like where are the jobs and where can I go, I always say, if you are willing to go outside of Calgary and think about these different places. So like we have a whole bunch of roles right now for up in northern BC, and I got everything from HR generalist roles to disability coordinators, you name it. But you got to relocate up there, and they'll pay you to relocate. But then you got also these companies down in where these big projects. So there's a website on the Government of Alberta's website that maps out all the major projects in Alberta. So going to those areas, knowing that they like to hire locals, you'll increase your chances tenfold.
And your cost of living will be decreased.
Oh, huge. And if you've always wanted to live in BC, like there are some pretty remote areas in BC, but there's also some that are beautiful where there is lots of work happening, lots of work.
Okay, thank you. So Pat, may I get you to jump in about?
Yes, I was just going to echo what Debbie was saying around the energy services sector, that, again, there's a skills shortage. You can qualify for those jobs with relatively short, training. Some companies are looking for some of those safety certificates. Some aren't. Some are, looking for people that are, willing to, be based out of a more rural area, physically fit, are, okay with a rotational work assignment.
Able to pass a drug test.
Yes, pass a drug and alcohol test, which is key to the whole safety piece on site. But again, these are not roles that are, for the most part, based in, Calgary or Edmonton or the, kind of major metropolitan areas. I guess you could do them from here. You would just need to get yourself to where you need to be in order for your rotation. But, again, I think just to echo what Debbie's saying in terms of, if you can be flexible about, where you're working from, where you're based out of, there's lots of opportunities outside of, Calgary, Edmonton. And you don't have to go, Medicine Hat's not that bad. Red Deer's not that bad. It's not like we're saying boonies, just,
Fast food. Yeah.
it would require probably a relocation of some kind.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Lise, since we've been talking about job fairs, can you give a few hints about how to prepare for a virtual job fair? So for instance, I know Talent Pool, they do their job fair by chat. Cristina, you might be able to also speak to this. And then the in-person job fairs, which I think Debbie mentioned about maybe down in Medicine Hat. Can you give a few tips about that?
Sure. Regardless of whether it's online or in person, I would say and recommend that the first step is the job fair attendee or job seeker really wants to know what they want to communicate about themselves. So they don't have to memorize things, as we talked about earlier. It doesn't have to be super scripted, but have some key points that you want to be able to get across. And that could be your value proposition. So what is it that you want to be able to communicate to the people that you are talking to? What are the types of roles you're looking for? What are the things that you have to offer? So know yourself. The second piece would be you can likely do some research on who is going to be there. So find out about the company, find out if there's names of the people who are going to be there. So you can create some questions that you'd like to ask when you are at the job fair, again, either in person or online. And with that advanced preparation, then you are more confident, you're more prepared, and you can have conversations with the recruiters. So whether it's in person, the worst thing you do is say, "So you have any jobs?" Well, that's why they're there. And I actually remember Debbie and I first met, and you probably don't remember this, Debbie, a million years ago when she was a recruiter at a University of Calgary career fair. And I asked her a question, and I still remember her answer to this day. I'm like, how are you choosing what, candidates that you want to interview? She's like, Lise, see this pile? This pile is massive. It's untargeted. They had terrible questions. I'm not looking at them. See this pile? These people had amazing questions. They made an impression on me. They knew something about my organization. So there it is. They knew something about my organization. So the more preparation that you can do, the better. So in person, to have those questions, to present yourself and your value in that conversation. And likely, now I haven't been to an online job fair. So for anybody of the speakers who has, if it's a chat function, double check your spelling and your grammar and your capitalization before you hit send. Make sure that your lighting is set up okay, and you're still dressed professionally. So those would be the tips that I would offer.
I'm going to jump in before I get Cristina, because I have been at an online job fair. And the number one bugbear I had was somebody would type in hi. Ooh. And then they'd wait for me to respond. And this is where I think having an elevator pitch pre-made so that you can copy and paste, what are you looking for, kind of a quick little sentence or that to put in so that when I'm answering or I'm looking at it, I kind of have some idea. Because if you're making me work to have this social interaction, I already hate you. No, I don't hate you. That's not true. But so Cristina, what has been your experience? Because you have been at Talent Pool, and this is where we're chatting, not the face-to-face in a room, right?
Yes, this has been just the chat. So one of the things that I would recommend people to do before the virtual job interview is, if you're interested in a specific company, go to their booth. So Talent Pool has specific websites or pages for your company they're going to have what the company is, and they are also going to have a list of the jobs available that they want to feature. So you're going to see a list of jobs. You can see if any of them interest you, but you can also go to their website and see everything that they have posted in different locations, in different departments and things like that. So make sure that you find something that you may want to apply for, or you maybe already applied for. And when you come and introduce yourself, ask specific questions about that role. Ask specific questions about the company. As you said, Lise, the worst thing that can happen is when you get somebody saying, I'm looking for a job, what do you have? And I'm like, I don't even know your name. I don't even know where you're located. What are your skills? What's your background? So yeah, it is super important that you kind of prepare a few questions before you come in. So because this is also, it's not about you being a good match for the company or for that job, but also that company in that group being a good match for you. So having a little bit of background on the role and on the company, it's always good. And coming from a recruiter, the answers that you're going to get are going to be very honest. They're going to give you more information on what a day in the life of that role looks like. So that's going to help you a lot, not only when you apply for a job, but maybe later on when you go through an interview.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I wanted to add one thing on this, is that you have to remember that not every company at this job fair is actually hiring either.
Right.
A lot of the ones that go there, I recall going to many a job fair, and we were there to promote our brand. And I can remember our job wasn't net. We knew we were. We were. I was at a company where we did not hire on the spot, and so you had to go through a vigorous all we were telling people was go online. Here's a card to our website. That was it, and handing out swag. So that it's important to know that not every company there is hiring. So when we're talking about getting to know their company, it's also a matter of taking your phone out and quickly going to their careers before you approach the booth. Go to their careers section and see if there are any jobs even posted. And if there aren't in your area, that's a good icebreaker to say, oh, I didn't see anything. I'm, looking for a role as a blank, and I didn't see anything. Do you guys typically hire in this area? And what can you tell me about that? And so that they know that you've already done a little bit of legwork, instead of asking them if they've got a job in your area. It takes like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to have these smartphones now. It takes 2 minutes to Google, go to their career section, see what they're hiring on, and then that's what I would use as an icebreaker.
I remember.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to add two last things to that. Debbie mentioned brand, and that sometimes they're there just to promote their brand. They don't actually have active openings and positions. Well, from a job seeker perspective, this is your opportunity to promote your brand as well. So online, one thought that I had was, make sure that the name that comes up on your screen is actually your name. And there's an opportunity to promote your brand there. You can edit it often and maybe put in a designation or something else that, and make sure when you're logging in, you're not logging in under somebody else's name in your house, because you can actually see, or, something that's unprofessional. So that's just like employers don't necessarily have jobs that are open. It's the beginning of relationship building. I use a lot of metaphors. So it's like dating. So You're not going to the job fair and getting married right away. Sometimes you can be hired on the spot, but you are starting this relationship so that perhaps in the future, when an opportunity comes up, you have somebody you can speak to, you can reach out, things like that. Sorry, Lynn, go ahead.
No, that's great. No, I was just going to say, I remember also Debbie saying to me that you'd get resumes in and you'd put a K for keep and the rest would go into that round filing cabinet.
Yeah.
So, you think about it for everyone out there. I think what I'm hearing is, number one, you have to be prepared. Before you actually go to a job fair, research who's going to be there, research each individual company. Are they a match for you? Is there information you need to make sure that they are a match and that you might be able to be successful? And it is all about relationship building, which this whole job seeking thing is. It's all about relationships. So thank
And
you.
Lynn, can I just add one more thing to what you said? Not just researching, but then prioritizing.
Yes.
So when you get to the job fair, you're not just following the line of people, that you're like, okay, my top priority is XYZ. They're in the back corner. I'm heading over there.
Yeah.
Then my second one is over here. So you know, is it the most efficient and are you going to get to see the most people? No, but you will get to see the people that you really want to see. And then if you don't see the ones at the tail end, that's okay, because you nailed your first,
Right.
5 or 10, however many you got to see.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, so another question that's come up is, as a mature worker, 50 plus, for Shoppers Drug Mart, you have to be 55 to be a mature person, but looking for employment, do you have any tips for getting that job? So how do we beat this kind of idea of ageism? Because we do know it's out there, although it is kind of an employee market right now.
I can still recall, Lynn, being I was doing a talk to one of your groups once. I'm still embarrassed by this. And I said there was no such thing as ageism in the workplace. I distinctly said that. And then there was a lady at the thing, and she came to me afterwards and said she had spent her entire career researching and working and about ageism in the workplace. And she's like, I'm here to tell you it actually is a thing. So couldn't shut up after that, because I come from a different world where how I was raised. My dad, I was just talking to someone the other day about this, and my dad told me, Debbie, you earned every single one of your gray hairs, and you wear them proud, because that people will see that as experience. And so I've never faced that. But I do see for some roles that I work on where they're describing the person and they're saying, probably someone under 30 or 40, they'll say, which is ageist. However, for a lot of those roles, they are quite physical jobs, is what I have found. And the other thing that I found is that if we're looking for younger people for, let's say, an accounting role where they say we want 1 to 2 years of experience, that's almost the way to say we want someone very young, right? Without saying that. And so people get offended and they say, what, I bring all these skills. But a lot of times what people have to understand, it's about succession planning. It's not about ageism. So they're looking at, they might have a very mature team and they need to bring some younger folks on, so that when the more mature people start retiring, they have other people that can take over those more senior roles. Or they might have a very senior team, and so they need some extra hands and more at the junior level. We see that as well. So I've seen it both ways, but there was also a fella out there who did, he gets hired by companies to come in and talk to them about their turnover rates. So that his number one client is these call centers that have very, very high turnover. Cristina, you might be able to relate to this because you guys have a call center at TELUS, don't you? I think so.
Yeah, we have several call centers all over Canada, so it is high turnover. That's true.
But did you know the solution is for that? The solution is to actually hire older workforce. They are known to stay longer, and this consultant, he gets paid like hundreds of thousands of dollars to go in, and he said it's literally a template now that he sends, and it's like essentially saying hire an older workforce. So if you're ever got an area that you've experienced a high turnover, I highly recommend to organizations to take a look at their strategies and maybe that they should be actually targeting the more mature workforce as well.
Lynn, I have a couple of tips, really
Okay.
quick ones. I'm going to make a couple of assumptions in answering this question. So my first assumption is that if you're 50 plus, you have a lot of work experience. And if you have a lot of work experience, your resume might be really long. And so number one is I would recommend not going more than 10 years unless it's directly relevant to the job. Number two, in a cover letter or a resume to write over 25 years experience. So that's just flagging perhaps age. So look at the job posting. If it's asking for 5 years experience, you could write over 5 years experience, which is the truth. So that would be from a resume perspective, make sure that it's targeted, make sure that you maybe pull out some of your earlier career experiences. Number what's that? One, two. Number three would be open and flexible to consulting jobs, to flex working. So this thought of I need to get this job with full-time permanent benefits within an organization. Like think about starting your own kind of consulting business in your area of expertise. Number four tip is to reach out to organizations instead of responding to job postings. And of course, the last tip would be talking to people, making connections, and using the network that you have.
Okay. Do you want to show us, Lise, your example of a simple resume? Because one of the questions we get all the time is, do I have to target my resume for every job posting? And, I have my answer, but you were going to, I know you have a resume that you were going to share.
So a show of hands from all of our panelists of what your answer to the question is. Do you need to target your resume for every job? Put up your hand if you believe the answer is yes.
Are we talking definitive every job, or are we saying similar kind of jobs?
I believe my position is a certain amount of editing needs to take place for every job. That does not mean you redo your resume for every job, but to incorporate some of the language from the job posting. So you can't use, like your teaching resume for a nursing position is different language. You can't use your teaching resume for the Calgary Board of Education for Foothills because there might be slightly different languages. So how would you kind of counter that, Lynn?
Oh, no, I kind of feel like people should be maybe making changes to the top fold part, the very top half of their job. But in general, I always think that your job responsibilities, if you're looking for the same type of work, your work experience can generally stay the same. So I kind of say like maybe change 20%, 80% of the time. I don't know. Yeah, so I think that what at the very top is where you can actually make sure you've got those words in. But maybe we should ask Cristina and that who's looking at resumes all the time.
Every single day I always look at resumes, and as a recruiter we have to go through hundreds of candidates, so we don't have a lot of time to actually read word by word every single resume, something that showcases everything that you've done and is very clear and it doesn't have typos or mistakes, is really good. One of the things that I've seen, and this is something that I want you to pay really, really careful attention when you're submitting a resume, is that if you are submitting a resume or a cover letter, make sure that you are putting the name of the company in there and you don't send, I've seen resumes that is applications for TELUS, but it says, "Dear hiring manager at Starbucks," or
Yes.
things like that. And I'm like, oh, they're just using a template for everything. So it's not really changing a lot of the resumes, you said, Lynn. Just the important parts and the parts that actually match the job description as well.
Thank you. And you can,
Lynn, I just wanted to add though that so I have a search on right now, and the top candidate literally, well, they just told me that they were interested in they don't have a resume. They've never had one. And I was like, you're perfect. And so I wrote out a few notes about the person and submitted it. And my client's like, yes. So without a resume, without anything. So I've said, my dad used to joke that he used to get guys jobs with a name and phone number on a napkin. And that's the closest I've ever done to a napkin. But and they don't have the job yet, but I'm going to suggest that that's probably that they've got a good shot at it. So I think people put, that's another thing we were talking about earlier, the pressure we put on people for the job search. And another is about, oh, you've got to tailor your resume to each one. And I just go, are you just stressing people out more than, I mean, it's one thing, like what Cristina said, like maybe get the company name right. But do you have to go and tailor, if you're actually qualified for the jobs, and you have the skills and you've done that job, you do not need to do all that work. In fact, you don't even, I actually did another role just previous to that one where a guy was like, I don't have an updated resume. It has, and I was like, good, it's good enough. It's got the basics. I'll tell them the rest. And yeah, I'd have to look. He might have got that job. So I think we put a lot of pressure on people to be doing all this stuff when I'm not sure it's always necessary.
May I ask a question? Sorry, Pat, I'm just going to ask a question though. You know, maybe Debbie, though, the type of work that you do, you actually get to talk to the people, or you've connected with the people, so you understand what the job is, and you can tell. The guy who didn't have a resume, he told you a story, so you could pick that up. Whereas if I'm applying to TELUS and I'm going through their applicant tracking system, which we're going to talk about because I think there's a lot of misinformation about them, and you get lots of them, I feel like you have to tell your story in the resume because you don't get a chance to have that conversation and clarify or highlight what you want. So I do feel like resumes might be important. As a career coach, I really hope that's true.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the things also is that if you have two candidates that are, excellent, maybe that extra step in having a better resume is going to put you over the top. So it is very competitive.
I was just going to say the same thing. Debbie, you're championing people to an employer. And if somebody doesn't have that champion, you are relying on that resume to be your champion in terms of the whole process. And I did want to add sort of to this conversation again, if you're looking to transition into another industry, it really is your responsibility to translate your skills and experience into a language that the recruiter in a different sector is going to understand. So don't expect the other recruiter to be able to go, oh, you're coming from, X industry, and I can see how you can fit into my industry. You have to do that on your own. So, that is usually, meaning using certain language, using certain terminology, just to, kind of promote yourself to a different industry, even though, the foundational skills are the same, different vernaculars in different industries.
Yeah, I need to be clear. I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination for people not to have resumes or polished up their resume at all. I'm just saying from examples that it is quite possible that people put extra pressure on themselves and think like, oh my God, I didn't get that last job because I didn't have the right word in my profile. And that's not it at all. And I just look at the amount of time people are spending in stressing and writing the perfect cover letter and the perfect resume, of which a recruiter spent 3 seconds looking at. And so you've got to balance these things out. And I go, like, are you going to, you listen, even for someone to apply online and get their profile up and everything, it takes an hour Like,
52 clicks, I was reading for some companies.
yeah, like they're trying to simplify it, but it's ridiculous how long it is a long process. And so when you're doing that and then going, okay, and I'm going to tailor my resume and cover letter, I'm doing all these things, for a recruiter to be spending 3 to 5 seconds deciding whether or not you're even in the yes pile to forward on to the hiring manager, that's a lot of time invested. So I just say, my point was to say, just to relax a little. It's not the end of the world, and that isn't necessarily the reason you would or wouldn't get looked at for a position.
I
So,
think one of the takeaways that I would add is, a lot of the folks that I see, they come to me and say, I have applied to hundreds of jobs and got nothing back. And so that's a flag for me to say, okay, what's going on? Number one, let's diversify your search. So if you are only applying to jobs online and you're not getting anything, have you introduced yourself to a recruiter? Have you made yourself known? Have you been networking? Have you done information interviews? So have you diversified from just applying to jobs online? The second thing I wonder is, are you using exactly the same resume for the jobs that you're applying to? And what I work with my clients on is, let's get your resume into a really good solid format that doesn't take a ton of time to make those changes for human eyes and for software eyes. Like to Lynn's point, that the applicant tracking software, it can be two audiences, so that you're not using a resume that is not, you're speaking French when the audience only speaks Spanish. Like, it's got to be in the same language. And so two things: diversifying the audience, so the human relationships that somebody like Debbie has and reaches out, and the championing that she does, that should absolutely be somebody in your network and part of your job search if you can. And the other thing is, so how can you make that customization and editing of your resume easy and quick so that it doesn't take you 4 hours? You're doing some simple editing.
yeah, I'm going to ask Cristina. Cristina, when I go on YouTube and I watch all of these videos about applicant tracking system, and they share information about, how they can actually screen people out. And then I talk to recruiters, and so that's why I'm going to ask you. And they tell me that in Alberta, most of the client management systems, which are kind of used as applicant tracking systems, are pretty simple. And that recruiters actually are looking at the resumes unless someone has been screened out for a question, like, do you have this certificate or something? Do you have an applicant tracking system that screens out people before you see them, or are you looking at those resumes?
So this may be a big surprise because TELUS is such a big company and we have, leading edge technology and everything, but no, we're old school. We actually get every single applicant, we review their application and the resume manually, and we go through all of them. We actually don't have anything. But yeah, as you said, there is going to be some questions when you apply for a specific job that if it's a requirement for the position, they're going to be there. And yeah, it usually helps us go through that candidate a little bit quicker. If they don't have the requirements that we absolutely need for the job, then we may not call them back. But if if they have these questions in place, if their resume looks like it's a good match for the role, then we proceed with the next step, which is a quick phone interview, just to get to know them a little bit more on a personal level. And if there is anything, one of the things that I wanted to say about a resume, if there is gaps or if there is information that may not be very clear, the next step, the quick phone interview that we do, that's when we get more information. So even when I get resumes that may not be 100% updated, I know when I'm going to call that person, what kind of questions I want to ask to clarify different things. So that would be your kind of like your second chance at clarifying anything that may not be, in your resume.
Okay, thank you. So an applicant tracking system isn't the be all and end all. It's just kind of filing cabinet for resumes that come in from what I've been told. So that's cool. We do have a
But
question.
Lynn, at Suncor, they did not look at the resumes, all of them. Suncor did not. Devon, which is now Canadian Natural, did, and Synovus did.
Okay, okay. So I guess part of it is finding out from different sources who's actually checking. So maybe you do need to, well, I guess in my mind, I think if you're writing your resume for an applicant tracking system, you're actually writing it for a human because you want to try to match what they're looking for. So it doesn't matter who's your audience. You still want to show up that you can do the job, right? Okay. So another question we have is around cover letters. How important are they? How much time should we spend? I have my own opinion about this, but I really want to hear. How do you guys feel about cover letters? Debbie, I know you're going to say I don't care. No. Relax, don't worry about it. Go and have a little drink somewhere.
Maybe this is my new attitude because I've been working from home so much. But yeah, I always have been a big believer in the T cover letter. But if I've so when you've got such a great panel here, because like I am not the recruiter that posts a role and then looks through resumes that come in. I'm the recruiter that makes a target list of people that are currently doing that job, and then I go after them, right? So you just got to hope that I get a role that your skill set would make it on one of my thousands of lists that I have. And then I pick up the phones and call and say, hey, are you interested in this one? It's very, very different than an in-house recruiter who's going to post the job and then look at the people that come in. But if I've purposely gone after you for a role that I'm working on, do I think you need to do no, you don't actually, because I'm coming after you. So it's just different. But I know that a lot of hiring managers do appreciate, oh, that's a beauty. Whose is that? Whoever did this is great.
You said the T-shaped cover letter, and I thought, I want to make sure our audience knows what that is. So this is one that I actually use to apply to a job. And I'm thrilled to hear you say because it depends, right? Everybody's feedback will be different. They might look at this and go, this is horrific. So
yeah, I would move your I offer over because it's not lined up.
Oh yeah.
I'm just OCD that way. But anyway,
I will do that. But this is a T-shape. Yeah.
But this is exactly what I'm talking about. And I love this letter so much because it just takes the guesswork out of whether or not you're a fit for the role. You go, the hiring manager asks you to find this on the left-hand side, and you're saying, I got it on the right-hand side. It's such a beauty. And there's lots of white space on it. It's bulleted. It makes me want to actually read this cover letter, where the other ones are so wordy and long. And it's like, yeah, but again, do you require it if I come after you? No. If you want to write one, you can. And I will send that over to the client. But yeah, for the most part, that's not necessary. But if you are going to use one, I'd use this one.
Out of curiosity, Cristina, if someone put this through to TELUS, would it go through because it's got it's in a box? Maybe it's not in a box. I'm making the assumption quite often that they're in a box or text box.
You know, I've never seen that format before, and I actually really like it. It looks like it's really easy to read, so I would totally read that.
Okay, well, everyone out there.
Could I,
yes, Pat?
If I could just add again, sort of putting the lens of somebody who is trying to transfer their skills into a different industry. We did some work a little bit back in terms of, with employers trying to understand what might be some employers' concerns about considering a candidate coming from a different industry. And so, and, the work that I do really kind of focuses on the energy sector. So, looking at why might an employer be hesitant about hiring somebody from the energy sector? But I think you could generalize this for other sectors as well. I mean, and some of it is, the employer is concerned about, one, that I'm going to hire this person and they're going to continue looking for a job in their usual industry, and so might be a retention risk. If there's a discrepancy in compensation between, the industry you're coming from and the industry you're going to, and just overall fit in terms of, kind of cultural fit and how we work in this sector and in my company as opposed to the industry you're coming from. And so I would just suggest that a covering letter is a way or a place you can concisely tell your transition story. Why are you making this career change? What interests you about the industry that you're going into, and to provide, some comfort to the employer that's reading your resume that, if they take a chance on you, you're going to stay. And so, but to Debbie's point that she made earlier, that has to be a genuine, authentic story. And so, but it is an opportunity to try and anticipate what might be some of the concerns of this employer, and how can I let them know that I've thought about these and why I'm making this as a very conscious choice to change industries. So that's just a consideration for how you might be able to use a covering letter in that kind of circumstance.
Oh, excuse me. Technology. I usually take it off. Can I throw it in the garbage? Sorry. Oh, really great points. And I would like to add that I also think that it's an opportunity for you to share with the employer that you've done some research and you are choosing to work for them. And so by including some of the information about why you feel it's a good fit and how you are choosing them, I think that might be a bonus. Cristina, do you think? What kind of cover letters have you seen, and what makes an impression? Or do you read them?
Yes, I do. I always open them because I have the feeling that person that submitted a resume and a cover letter went the extra step, the extra mile. And you know what? In the cover letter, another little thing that you can actually add is if you went through a job fair, you can also put it in there and said, I met with this recruiter in this job fair, and I'm really interested in applying for this job. So that's another little tip.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. I do want to just mention that we are going to put some links Debbie provided about major projects in Alberta for anyone interested in doing some research and finding out what is happening around the province. It's a great way to really discover how things are working in terms of our, quite often, both private dollars and our tax dollars, and seeing where there might be some opportunities that you might not notice elsewhere.
And Lynn, I would like to add, there's another list we should add in there. Okay. It's from the Calgary Economic and Development. They have lists on their website, everything from the manufacturers, energy companies, I think tech, green companies maybe. They have all those already built for you. So, and they're free. So I recommend that when you're figuring out where it is you're going to go next for your target list of companies, is to go check out some of the lists they've already built for you. And I mean, I do this all the time for my clients. If I'm doing a lot of work in mining right now, and step one for me was making a list of all the mining companies in Canada. And then step two, figuring out who was doing those jobs. So how it works for a job seeker instead is going, who are my target companies I'm going to go after? And who could potentially be my boss at each one of those companies? So it's the exact same work I do to fill roles is the exact same that job seekers use to find work.
Mm. Oh, great suggestion. Great suggestion.
Another hint to that is because often the major projects list talks about who is the project owner or eventual operator. And so to also do your homework around, okay, well, what's the supply chain of contractors and service providers that this company is going to hire in order to build or operate or whatever that project, because that will also give you some insights into who might be due hiring around a project, especially some of these major projects. Like they're going to take years,
Right.
to actually become operational. So who are some of the employers that are going to be along the value chain that are also going to be offering employment to get to that project, 4 or 5 years down the road?
So sorry, Pat, may I just ask for clarification? So I find out that this is the company. How do I find out all of their service providers? Who else will be?
Well, some of the companies are getting much more transparent about advertising that on their websites.
Okay.
So, for example, LNG Canada did a fabulous job of, on their website indicating who their contractors and suppliers were. And so that gave you some insights into that. But sometimes, their companies, you have to kind of monitor sometimes their media releases, looking at different kinds of media articles around projects, because they'll say we've contracted with this company as the EPC, or we've contracted with this company Y to offer this services. So, it does take some market research. But as Debbie said, that those major project lists are fabulous in terms of understanding, some of the big investment that's happening across the province, and other provinces have them as well.
And let's not forget then, I'll add on to that, Pat, knowing who the agency is who's responsible for hiring their contractors. So if you say, each oil company will be related to at least a couple of agencies that do all their contract recruiting. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but my company just won an RFP, and not for oil and gas though. We're getting there. And so knowing which company is attached to which, it's an art form too to follow them, because especially during COVID, a lot of them shut down or sold, and there's some bigger names like Allegis is one that does a ton. Allegis, there's Agilus, there's Rovin. Those are the big boys out there, but you can, for each one of them, I'm sure, and I don't know this actually, but if you went to, like, if you say Rovin, I know for sure they got the contract for Suncor, at least they used to. I don't know, Cristina, do you guys do your own contract recruiting, or are you attached to a firm?
No, we don't. So the contracting companies do their recruiting, and then we do just for TELUS.
Right. And do you know who that is? Who's TELUS's contract recruiter? Like who they go through?
I'm not 100% sure, no, but so we have Ledcor, ATI, AFL, and I don't know if they use the same agency or if they have their own specific HR teams.
So that's always also good to for people to figure out. So even though you might go, oh well, that's Suncor, but then if I go, yeah, but it, and they have all these major projects, I go, so who are their what's the recruiting company that they're using? And they would be using Rovin for sure. I think they used to anyways.
Yeah.
But figuring that piece out would be important.
The other piece that, so we've got these major these major projects. I think of this in another way is what's happening in the news? Are you on top of what's happening in the news? So I'll give you an example. Say Arts Commons, downtown Calgary just received $2 billion grant for blah, blah, blah project. Wow, they might need people resources. So keeping on top of what's happening in the news. So we have settlement services that may be helping Syrians or Ukrainian refugees who are coming. So are there funds towards that? Is that an opportunity to reach out and see, hey, I have the skills to help in that industry? So in addition to the research on major projects and these websites, also what do I hear happening in the world that I might be able to leverage?
Good point. Good point. And a reminder that when we hear about major projects or that, we tend to think, oh, trades. But in fact, so many of these organizations, they need all kinds of skills. They need, accountants or people in reception. And so don't limit how you're viewing your job search in a way that you might be missing certain opportunities. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've added more resources in the alerts. So if you are watching and you want to click on alerts, there's quite a few different resources that you might want to copy and paste and research. Okay, so we've still got some time. So we've done cover letters, we've talked about resumes, we've talked about networking, and we've kind of touched on recruitment agencies. They are beneficial for us to consider as an option for looking for work. We kind of want to have a variety of different pathways in order to find work. Let's talk about LinkedIn. So is there an important role for LinkedIn during your job search, and how do we build an impressive profile? What if you are, as Pat's an expert in, what if your previous experience was in this field and you want to transition to this field? Anybody who wants to jump in, please jump in.
I have a really important message that I want to get out today. Can people please quit? There is an organization in town, and I won't name them, but they're telling people to put such generic titles under their name, like, oh, I think they're so dumb that it's like,
oh no, I hope it's not me.
Oh God, I hope it's not either, Lynn. No, it's not. Oh, I should go look, but it's like trailblazer, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what are you? And the only way for me to have any clue whatsoever is to click on their profile. It is so annoying. And I get people are like, yeah, but I'm trying to brand myself as all these other wonderful things. It's like, okay, well, you can't be all things to all people. And I find it actually very annoying. When my team is mapping and we're making our target list of people, if every single person I had to click on to go, what is this person? And then it's like, oh, I think they're trying to rebrand themselves into something else. So I will automatically go to, they're not going to be interested in returning to what it is I want them to do. So if you're coming up in searches because your background is a fit, but then your title is, trailblazer, and that's the one that keeps coming up on mine. And then all these other generic words that I have no clue. You could be an accountant, you could be a physician. I have no idea unless I go on and read. But it's such bad advice. And somebody out there, I know who, is repetitively telling people to do this. And I'm telling you from a recruiter standpoint, I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
Fair enough, because you don't search for a trailblazer. You search for skills or for a topic. Yeah,
no, yeah. Never once have I searched for a trailblazer. You got that right.
Unless you need to go hiking somewhere really far away in the... Okay, good advice. Anyone else?
Well, I think one of the things that LinkedIn offers that a resume doesn't is the opportunity to update it, right? Like a resume, once you've submitted it, it is static. And so if you've done, a different project, or you have maybe finished, some sort of learning or that kind of stuff. Like, so, you can keep that LinkedIn profile fresh. And then if somebody like Debbie comes and looks at your LinkedIn profile and sees that you've recently done something to upskill or expand your knowledge or whatever, you have the opportunity to do that on LinkedIn that you can't on a, static resume.
So how do you change if I've previously been in this field and I want to move into this field? How do I present the information? Do I delete my previous employment? Do I put in the about section where I want to go? What would be the most effective way for me to showcase what I have to offer?
I'm a firm believer of LinkedIn that less is more, and give me a reason to reach out. If you have your entire resume on LinkedIn, there's no reason for me to. I will make that decision ahead of time that you're not a fit. But if I'm unsure, so let me give you an example. If I am looking for some, and a lot of people say it's title chasing, right? We're finding people with the similar titles, so we're assuming the job was similar. But if you've gone and spelled it out, and then I'm looking for someone with XYZ software experience, and I'm looking through yours and I don't see it, I'll just go on to the next one. But if you just say you're, I keep using the word accountant. I don't know why I never recruit accountant. I shouldn't say I've got 3, I think, but anyways. So if you're an accountant and you put all your details and you put the software and you don't have it, I'll move to the next one. If you just say accountant and don't have it, I'm actually going to reach out. If you're in a similar industry, I would reach out on that. So give people enough on there that think of it like you're fishing and you're or that you're dangling your hook or you're dangling your carrot, like, come here, Debbie. And although you'd be better off to dangle a cookie with me, but you're dangling your carrot and get me to bite. That's the key. What you're trying to do is get me to bite. So for me, having that, making sure you show up in the searches that they're doing. So having those keywords like maybe accountant or I don't know why I'm going there, but accountant, and then with your profile saying how many years of experience you have as an accountant in the industries, and that's it. You're good to go. Okay. I would have my jobs. I would have the years I worked there, not the months. I would have my title, and that's it. That's it. You're not getting any more.
Cristina, may I ask, does TELUS look at people's LinkedIn profiles?
Yeah, so I just started using LinkedIn Recruiter. I think it's been like 6 months or something like that, so I'm pretty new. We do for very difficult positions to fill. So like, for example, for me that I have to hire in Northern Alberta, where there is just like very, very small towns, very small communities. We do reverse searches for candidates in those cases. And 2 things that I want to say, there's 2 details that sometimes people forget to update. One is their location. The other one is, I think it's something like a status that they say open for work. Because when I do my searches, that's usually some of the things that I look for, not only the skills or the past employment, but I also look, where are you located and are you open to work?
So putting in the open to work for the recruiter is of great benefit. I guess I'm wondering about that banner. Personally, I hate that banner that says, open to work, simply because I kind of feel like we're all open to work if the price is right. I could jump ship if you're going to pay me enough. But how does that sit with anyone else? Any preference? Doesn't matter. Am I being picky?
Well, because I'm a third-party recruiter and I get paid to find people for roles, I don't like it, because then if my client goes on and sees it, they were like, are you kidding me? I could have found this person on my own. I have to pay you, Debbie. So I'm talking from a selfish point of view that that's why I don't like it. But is that good advice to give the general population to not have it on there? I don't think so, because at the end of the day, you heard Cristina talk about that's how she searches candidates. I prefer it's not there. However, if it's on there and you have the skills that I'm looking for, I'd still reach out. So if we hear that, I would still reach out. Cristina looks for it and searches that way. I would suggest that that's actually a good thing to have.
I guess I'm curious, and maybe it's Cristina who can answer this. What if you come across one of your employees that indicate they're open to work? Like, I'm wondering from an employer's perspective how they might perceive that label on your LinkedIn page.
I guess it's such a big company that I've never really, bumped into that situation. But yeah, no, that's a really good question.
My understanding is, if I may jump in here, is not having the banner. But if you put in, there's a section under your picture and all of that information where you can put open to work to recruiters. So you can choose, you can put open to work where anybody can see that, or recruiters. And if you put it open to work to recruiters, the recruiter from your company will not be able to see it. So they've kind of gotten around that so that you don't need to worry about having that situation where all of a sudden, like, you've got a job, why are you looking for work?
However, Lynn, be careful with that, because then you're only going to, that would be only people with recruiter seats.
Right.
And so my firm does not have recruiter seats. And
Right.
Usually you will see the recruiter seats with the larger organizations. And yet it's usually the boutique firms that are doing the headhunting and the searching for people. So the bigger companies don't have time typically to go map out a role and then target, and it's the smaller boutique firms. So if you did that, someone like me wouldn't see it.
Right. So I guess it's a balancing act. Do you care about the job you're presently in for them to find out? And if you're unhappy, maybe you just need to, find new work anyway. So thank you. So LinkedIn, though, my assumption is everybody is an advocate to be on LinkedIn.
I've been reflecting on that, and I am a big advocate of LinkedIn. However, I also would answer that question with, it depends. It depends on the industry. It depends on the person. I have a lot of clients who say, oh, my privacy, I'm concerned about sharing this information. It is but one tool that is available to us in this world of technology. If you decide to be on LinkedIn, it's not enough to simply have a profile. LinkedIn rewards you for activity. So the algorithms, the way it works, you cannot simply have a profile and expect it to work for you. It doesn't work that way. So I would have the discussion and say, have you considered LinkedIn? I'd hear, well, what are your hesitations? Let's look at the pros and cons. Some industries, like Debbie mentioned, oh, Facebook is where I'm at. Well, if that's where your industry is, then maybe focus your energy there. There are some industries that are not as focused on LinkedIn. My final comment is, you never know when you might need it. I joined LinkedIn with an invitation from a recruiter. Oh my goodness. I think not long after it started, and I thought, this is a great way to keep in touch with people as they move jobs. So it was my Rolodex. And then it evolved, and I thought, I actually need this for the work that I'm doing. So I fully developed my profile, and now I'm self-employed. And so it has a different purpose for me than it did when I was employed by an organization. So it depends, but it is such a great opportunity for research, professional networking, and for communicating your brand.
I actually did get a job through LinkedIn. They saw my profile, they invited me for an interview, and and I got it. So I think everybody, if you've got a few minutes, you don't have to live on it, but in terms of being active, liking, just reading, sharing, all those little things that really take 5 minutes.
And I do want to add one more thing to what Lise said, that even if you find that what you do and your job is, or your career, what your area is, and it's not on LinkedIn, I'm going to suggest that doesn't mean you shouldn't be on there. That, like, I'll give you an example. Like, a lot of the trades aren't on there, but I'll tell you, the second someone new puts their profile up that is in the trades, you see all these recruiters connecting with them, right? Because it's not common. So I would suggest that if that is your area, and you're like, oh, well, truck drivers aren't on there, so I'm not going to go on there. It's actually like, no, you would be headhunted even more, because it's rare. It's harder to find those folks. And so you're just making yourself more accessible to the recruiters.
So another question is it appropriate to message a hiring manager on LinkedIn after you've submitted your resume and cover letter?
No.
How do you really feel, Debbie?
Okay.
I can expand on that, Lynn. I wasn't being rude. The reality is a lot of more companies have social media policies in place, and the hiring managers, after the role's gone out, it's like how I tell people, it's like remember back in the day they came up with the term ambulance chaser. So that was down in the States where it's actually illegal now, but they were finding it was starting in California, where there would be an accident, and then all the lawyers were chasing the ambulance to try and get the work to sue whoever. So it became illegal to be an ambulance chaser. And I find it the same job as job seekers. Once a job goes up, they've applied, they've done their thing, and then to reach out to the hiring manager, you're being an ambulance chaser. It should be illegal. And in some cases, they may have policies even against that. So let HR do their thing, and the recruiters do their thing. Let the process take, because by that time it's too late. I will challenge you instead. A better way to do it is, if you find yourself being drawn to jobs that you have not already connected with that hiring manager, that they should then let the job close and do its thing, and then approach that manager for the next one, and reach out to them and get them to join your network. But doing it once the posting's up, I think, is tacky, and I don't think you should do that at all.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Okay, so another question about following up. I've gone through the interview process, and the interviewers are contacting my references. However, there have been an extended delay since I gave them my references, and I haven't heard back. Is it appropriate for me to follow up with the company?
I would first follow up with your references.
Yes.
Yeah,
So you know that they contacted them.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Oh, so you verified that? You haven't heard them? Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. You already have that connection with your recruiter. You've been going through the process. So feel free to contact that recruiter again to see what's going on. Maybe they need an extra reference. Maybe one of your reference haven't, completed the questionnaire or whatever they call. So yeah, absolutely. Go back to your recruiter and ask, to follow up or what's going on, so you can provide more information if it's needed.
So, Cristina, may I also ask, do you phone references? Do you ask them to fill out a questionnaire? How does TELUS actually do their reference checks?
Yeah, so we actually work with a contracting company that is called Backcheck, and they do the references for us. And right now, it's really, really easy, just because they do it online. So they send your reference an email saying, please fill out this reference for this candidate, and then they just can go and do it online. If we don't receive an answer and the candidate is okay with it, we may actually personally call them. But it's become so easy for them to just go and do the questionnaire that they usually do it.
I will admit that I've had to do questionnaires, and I've actually sent it to the job seeker first and had them fill it out, and then they send it back to me, and then I read what they say, and then I tweak it. I'll use the word tweak. Sometimes I have to totally redo it, but yeah, okay, thank you. So that's good.
I can say, Lynn, that our firm has won contracts to do reference checks for companies, but ours are old school. We are on the phones, and it takes about, I would say 20 to 30 minutes per reference. They're very detailed. Yeah, it's just to make sure they've checked all the boxes. We do not do online. But I know that more and more companies, even when I was at Devon, we were talking about not even doing references anymore. So they had pulled what they did there is they pulled a record of how many people did they decide not to hire in the past 3 years based on bad references, and it didn't happen not even once. So then they were like, okay, do we really need to be spending this much time and effort to do this? And they just decided no. So
Interesting.
yeah, so I think it depends on the company and the organization. And also that's, if they hire me to do a role, then I would do the references, but they might do their own thing for the general jobs that they have posted. That could be different too.
Okay. What if I don't have a supervisor as a reference? You know, if I've say worked at the same place and the supervisor has moved on, and then I've not had. What other kind of individuals or positions can I use as my reference?
I think it depends on how bad they want you. You know, at the end of the day, if they really want you and you don't have a supervisor, I've done some where they're like, yeah, he's been at the last job for 5+ years. And so the other references wouldn't really be, they don't even know that person anymore. And the company just goes, yeah, we're okay with that. I think everybody has their own story. And as long as you're open and upfront of what that looks like for you, I think HR can work with it. So just, it's when you start trying to hide things that everyone gets nervous. They can see through that. And when you're nervous saying it, they're nervous receiving that messaging. And that's how the red flags come up. So yeah, I think as long as you're upfront and say, there are always going to be some organizations that no, you absolutely have to have 3 and they have to be your past managers. But then if you don't have that, then I'm going to suggest that's not really a fit for you anyways, right?
Right.
Well, I'm in a position where I don't have a supervisor. I'm self-employed. And so who would I, if I was asked for references, and I was actually asked for reference letters in a job application recently to submit when I submitted my resume. So for me, and for anybody else who's in the position where they don't have a supervisor, I would say, okay, who do I know who can best speak to my abilities in my work? I can look for a colleague. I could look for, if I'm maintaining my network well, I can look back in my career history to go to a former supervisor. And I could also look if I'm volunteering or if perhaps a character reference, if I know nobody, I've never worked in this city before. So like Debbie said, I would say it's important to clarify who this reference is to you. So if I'm using a character reference, I would indicate character reference. This is how I know this person, or this is a volunteer supervisor that I had. This is an instructor that I had who's offered to write a reference for me or to be a reference for me. So to look at who can best speak and represent you and your abilities, and then clarify that for the employer and who that is to you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to salary. How do we negotiate salary? How do we tell an employer what salary we want? How do we make that decision? I hate salary questions. Okay.
I can't wait to hear from Cristina and Debbie about salary, because here's my position. So Number one, if you are asked what are your salary expectations, you need an answer. You need to answer that question. Not, oh, whatever you're offering. It's a test in a way to see if you know what the market is paying and what you're worth, and if you're in the right ballpark. Number two, if you are offered the job and you are given a salary and you'd like to negotiate it, I would say you need to do your research. You need to come up with why you would like to negotiate the salary and what you are asking for. And also to realize labor market, that perhaps one industry might pay one salary that you were used to getting. In another industry, it's not the same salary. So if I was going from being a CEO to working as a volunteer supervisor for a nonprofit, I should not expect the same salary because of who I was before. The last thing I would say, quite cheekily, is so some people will say, should I always negotiate? And I'm torn. I'm really torn. I also look at things like gender disparity and think, well, if I am female and I am being offered a certain salary, should I try and negotiate it? Because research shows us that females on average earn less than males. So, I mean, we can really debate this one, but there's other things to negotiate besides salary and an offer package. So that's my career development professional perspective, and I'd love to hear recruiter perspective.
Lynn, you were on mute, I think.
Yes, I was, because my dog was barking.
Oh,
Sorry, we've kind of lost Cristina. So Debbie, Pat, any additional information?
I'm happy to share my opinion on this. I think it always depends too on like who you're asking. Like, are you asking Debbie, the career coach, or Debbie, the third-party recruiter, or because Lise, you're right. At the end of the I don't want to waste. I personally don't like wasting people's time. My clients all will tell me up front what the range is, so I know what my target is. But I also don't take anybody out of the race based on comp. So if they say, we're willing to pay 100, I just did a role like this where it was like, I don't know, they were at 140, I think was the base. And everyone that I was finding for the role was making over 200,000 a year. And I just said to everybody, oh yeah, you're within the range. And then put the people forward and said to my client, this is what they make. So you have to do something about the comp because it's clear that that's where everybody's at. They didn't actually on that role. And we actually went with a junior person. So they were looking for a 10+ year person and they went with a 5-year person or something. So it was quite different so that person fit in their range. So yeah, I think it just depends. It depends on every job. But if you're asked that question, it is what it is. If you're saying, well, I want to make, $25 an hour and the job pays 20 and you say it's 25 and they say, well, we're paying 20. That's when you get to make the decision on whether or not you can make that work, or not. But I also, and I also say, don't apologize. Like if I'll tell you this right off the bat, I never fit in a comp range ever. And I'm not embarrassed to say that. But I thought I offered a skill set that nobody else was offering, and I did things differently than nobody else did. So it was what it was. I wasn't for every organization. And then when I was laid off and oil and gas plummeted, and then I was had in hand to all, these organizations, most of which were like, yeah, no, because they felt like they couldn't afford me, even though I was like, oh no, I could make it work. They go, yeah, you'll make it work for a while, and then you're going to go do what it is you actually do, which it's true. So for the job seekers out there, if you're used to making a certain amount and that's your target right now, I'm not saying that will never change, that like a year from now, if you're still looking for work, you might go, well, I might consider something a little less. But for how things are right now today, just know your worth and don't apologize for it. It is what it is, and stand your ground until you go, okay, if a year later, your savings are running out and you can't afford to quite be as rich as you were, you would consider less, then you can be more open to that. But yeah,
Okay.
just know what you're worth and aim for that.
Okay. Cristina, may I ask you? I see we're going to run out of time here, but I feel like this is a question that everyone always works with. So Cristina, about negotiating salary, or you ask people what their salary expectations are?
So for me, I guess it's a little bit different just because I hire people that are going into a unionized environment. So they are going to be part of a union. So there's a little bit less wiggle room on the negotiation. But you know what? I'm always open if somebody asks for a salary negotiation when they're going into a management professional role. That is something that I can take back to the hiring manager and at least ask. So to me, as a candidate or as a potential employee, what's the worst that can happen if you ask?
Right, right.
If I could just add a couple of thoughts on from a transitioning perspective, one of the things I would say is if you're considering, transitioning into a different industry, do your homework. Know upfront whether or not they offer a salary that is ever going to meet your expectations or your needs, and again, expectations versus needs might be a more appropriate view when you're looking at making that transition, because sometimes you're getting other things in that first job in a new industry. You're getting your foot in the door, you're being able to make contacts, you're being able to get some industry experience. So you may be more flexible on the salary side to get some of those other benefits. But do your homework. I'd hate to see people go through a process, get to a job offer, and you'd be so far apart that it's just not feasible. So that's my thoughts on transitioning to another industry.
Good point. Okay, so we have like 3 minutes left. How about each of you give one quick tip to a job seeker? What's your top tip? So could we start with Lise?
Know what you have to offer and diversify your job search so that you are using lots of different strategies, not just one.
Very good tip. Thank you. Pat?
Yeah, I would say, if we look at what companies and industries are doing across the economy, is they are looking for ways to be resilient during this time of transition and uncertainty. So whether that be technological solutions or, doing things differently, and diversifying, like there's lots of things that industry's doing. And I feel like job seekers have to do the same thing. Understand, how do you build not just for that next job, but what else might you have to do to be resilient in the long term in terms of your career?
Thank you. Cristina?
Yeah, so if you get to the interview stage, make sure, and if you don't get the job, if you're not the successful candidate, make sure that you keep that connection with the recruiter, with the hiring manager, because you never know when another opportunity is going to open and they're going to think about you.
Good tip. Relationships matter. Debbie?
I don't know if I have one tip, but I want to share one last story that I can recall. The last time I did a presentation with someone from TELUS, I actually left that presentation. It was at the library, and then headhunted the guy to my company. He had been with TELUS for 10 years. So you just never, so Cristina, we'll connect after this, but more importantly, you just never know when your next connection's coming from, or what it may lead to. We're on the panel, and you just never know.
So true. Okay. Really good tips, and I do really appreciate it. There was a question about where can I go and get my resume reviewed? Where can I go for help? And I want to say that if you're in Calgary, there are 3 different service providers that offer free support to job seekers. One is Prospect, one is, I'm going to say McBride, but it's not them, MCG, and then Career Hub up in the Northwest. So just Google, Calgary free service providers, go on the Alberta government website. Alice has information. And there's lots of free resources out there. There's also, if you're an immigrant, you can go to the, CCIS, Center for Newcomers, Immigrant Services. There is so much support out there that looking for work can be a very lonely, stressful job. If you can have support, I think it makes it just so much easier. So thank you so much to our panelists. I've really enjoyed this and appreciated hearing your opinions and your sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. It's been a great discussion, and thank you for those who sent questions. And I know there was a few that we actually didn't get to, and so I apologize. Final reminder, in the fall, we're doing 2 days, October 19th, November 16th. Hopefully you're all employed by then. But if you are, you can tell other people about them. And they're going to be the interactive workshops with career coaches and HR people. And we will be looking at resume reviews, interview skills, all of those types of things. So watch your email. There is going to be a job fair. Use the tips that you heard here today, September 21st. You can check and see. I've seen a few signs of career fairs that are coming up. Check those out. I saw some on where they put newspapers and things. And then remember, we're having a post-event survey, and you can win a $100 gift certificate from Amazon. And, Amazon sells everything. So you don't have to worry about choosing or thinking about, oh, what could I buy? Actually, maybe that is the problem. Anyway, once again, thank you to the Alberta government, the Canadian government, to Compound X, who's made this all happen. And then, of course, that talent pool team, really fabulous. Chris, Brandon, all of you doing so much work. I've come away with new perspective and new information, so I hope everyone else has. I hope you have a great day. Once again, get outside, get some sun, re-energize. Don't sit in front of your computer all day. Enjoy it. Thank you so much for attending. Look forward to meeting up with you again in the fall. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thanks.